Hello, welcome to the Online Strength Coach Podcast, episode 108. Today's episode is just how prevalent, on the prevalence of bullshit within the fitness industry and how that trickles down into other aspects of society or completely unrelated fields. Where this podcast is coming from is I listen to a lot of podcasts and audiobooks. Audiobooks is pretty much where I get the majority of my reading from. 90% of the reading that I do when it comes to books done via Audible and audiobooks. Before we continue on, if you're not a member of Audible, and I'm not sponsored by Audible, I don't get anywhere near enough readers to be sponsored by them. But if you're not an Audible member, or you don't listen to audiobooks, and you have any form of commute, or you do cardio, or even when you're in the gym doing like volume, so like 6 sets of 4, 70%, or any kind of task where you don't really need a lot of mental arousal, or maybe you don't need a lot of attention. So if you're mowing the grass, or you're doing cardio, or you're walking around the shops, or you have any kind of commuting task, audiobooks are an absolutely fantastic way to take information. The amount of books available on Audible is phenomenal. However, there are some you'll only be able to get via paperback or hardback, so it's not ideal for that sense. And when new books release, for instance, Tim Ferriss's Tools for Titans is a book that I'd be quite keen to read. However, it's only available on paperback currently, so the profit margins are slightly better. So I'll probably wait to get that on audiobook. But yeah, so like I listen to a lot of audiobooks and a lot of podcasts. A really good way of either listening to other perspectives in the realm of podcasts. Really good if you're into a topic or you're an expert in a field. It can be a really good way of hearing other experts talk about their feelings, their thoughts. It's a good way of broadening your horizons in that way. In the same sort of way that talking to someone can be a really good way of helping you develop in that manner or down that path, listening to a podcast in that area is a very similar thing, except you can't interrupt them with your talking, so it's probably better. And audiobooks are obviously the same idea of expanding your mind, expanding your knowledge, except that with much greater breadth, much greater in-depth detail in a certain field, because it's a book, basically. So yeah, if you don't listen to audiobooks, don't listen to podcasts, I would very highly recommend that you do that. I personally subscribe to audible.com, it's £15 a month, and you get 2 audiobooks for that. And I would go through probably 2 to 3 audiobooks in a month. So I think it's outstanding value and something I highly recommend anyone do. But from this, so I'm currently listening to a self-help book, or I tend to read mainly within factual realms. I kind of read or listen to 95% factual. Only really read Bernard Cornwell for my fictional intake. So I'm reading quite a lot in the self-help area just now, or listening to. And one of the book that I'm currently listening to is called The Extraordinary Mind. It is by, give me a second, I'll pull it up for you. It's The Code of the Extraordinary Mind by Vishen Lakhani, the founder of Mind Valley. It's basically just a self-help book, or it's a book that's puts across laws and puts across tactics you can use to kind of get yourself out of like dogmatic ways of thinking. Quite a lot of stuff you probably already are doing, some stuff you might not be doing. But anyway, within this book, he covers the topic of nutrition a few times, and some of the recommendations like he was giving out, like for females, how the combination of macronutrients put in a certain way change what he calls the body's chemistry lab. Like complete and utter nonsense, pseudoscience. Obviously not this man's realm of expertise, but he is someone that a lot of people will look up to. He's the head of a multi-million-pound self-help company, and people his book's been on bestseller lists before, so he's an influential person. So when he spouts shite, a lot of people take it on board as fact. So talking a lot of things like low carb, macronutrient diets, and like example of which is keeping fats away from carbs and keeping carbs away from fats in your meals, which has been shown again and again to make no real difference in the dietary or in the outcomes of the diet as regards fat mass loss, weight loss, fat loss, or better profiles of body composition. Same as with low carb, the mass of the data does not really suggest that there's anything to low carb as regards being better than a calorie controlled diet for body composition change or for fat loss changes. It really is as simple as calories in versus calories out when it comes to fat loss. There's no real other method to it, and that's being shown and time again through meta-analysis, systematic review, and through studies. It's one of the few things within nutrition that has a really strong body of evidence behind it. Just calories in versus calories out. Why do you think things like if it fits your macros works for thousands and thousands of people, no matter how much people want to get annoyed at it because it's not clean? It works. Things like lean gains or the intermittent fasting against just calorie control in a different guise, it works. People get annoyed about it because they're eating 2 big meals rather than eating 6 small meals. There are certain things that you can maybe term as optimization within the diet, such as eating protein every 2 to 3 hours to keep protein synthesis high, to keep the turnover of protein within the body high. There is science to suggest that was maybe a tactic that you want to utilize for an optimal diet. But as regards like fat loss, that's not really, it's not necessary. Might be optimal, but it's not necessary to get that outcome of fat loss. And the other, so it's both today they listened to. So the other show was a podcast called The Side Hustle Show, which is an absolutely fantastic podcast. If you're not subscribed to it, please do so if you listen to podcasts. If you have any kind of interest in an entrepreneurial bent, if you're currently full-time employed and you're looking to either start a side business or to earn income outside of work, it's an absolutely fantastic resource, fantastic show to start thinking about different ways that you can make money in your spare time, different ways of thinking it, loads of different models you can think of, loads of different case studies for businesses, little snippets here and there you can utilize if you already have a business online or in person. Would definitely recommend you check out the show. But he's talking to a girl, I can't remember her name, but she runs like a online group coaching service for weight loss called Skinny by Spice or Spice Your Way to Skinny or something like that. Now she's very successful. She's making upwards of $10,000 a month. She's helping people lose weight. She's giving them like she has like support groups. She doesn't really do one-to-one anymore, but she used to. And she give them diets and she give them all the materials that they require to lose weight. But her big thing was the actual effects of the spices that were the mechanism for weight loss, which again is patently absurd. If any of these spices were to have some form of supra-physiological effect, so when we say supra-physiological, we mean it's exhibiting a response that you can't produce within the body naturally, if you will. So if we talk about a physiological increase in testosterone through, say, things like deadlifting or squatting, increasing serum testosterone by 170%, 180%. These are physiological increases. These are not supra-physiological. These can be coaxed out of the body either through dietary intervention or through exercise intervention. Now, when we talk about supra-physiological, we're talking about external agents or external like drugs, specifically what I'm alluding to, that have an effect on the body that's not possible through dietary supplementation or through dietary manipulation or through exercise. So when we look at testosterone again, if we take 500 milligrams of testosterone in death rate, we take 1,000%. We increase per testosterone by 1,000%. That's not something we can do anyway without taking steroids or without taking drugs. So we don't get that same performance benefit from doing the supra or the non-super physiological activities. So doing the squats or sleeping for longer or trying to game the endocrine system in some manner that doesn't involve drugs. It over time, it amounts to nothing else other than noise. So anything she's trying to do within spices or any like add cinnamon to this or add cayenne pepper to that, none of these are going to have that supralogical effect. They're not going to have a drug response. They don't have any kind of response mechanism behind them that means that they'll have some form of effect outside of noise. So it's like bullshit like bulletproof coffee or any of these gimmicks that try and say they'll like, one of the classic one is that eating celery burns more calories than it takes to process it, which is complete and utter bullshit. Some of our ones like that, drinking cold water, if you drink cold water, it takes your body more calories to heat the water up than it does to burn it, which is, if you're being pedantic, is probably true, but we're talking about like probably 2 or 3 calories. So it's like complete nonsense, complete noise, not worth considering in any way. Because when you look at the logging error of someone who's taken a nutrition journal, it's 25 to 30% or more. So if you have a 25 to 30% error in your logging, which is very common, and it's been shown in a lot of nutritional studies that this is actually the case, that people have huge errors when they keep a food journal or when they log their calories. And that's been shown scientifically to be, not a fact, but it exists and there's something that happens. What difference do you think adding cayenne pepper, even if it does increase your fat burning, or if it gives you an extra 3 to 5% or 10 calories, 20 calories, extra burning, or chewing gum all the time, or drinking cool water, or drinking cold water, or drinking deep green tea, or doing these kind of optimal habits, or taking on all these silly gimmicks in the belief that it's somehow going to have any kind of effect, when you're either not logging your calories or you're not keeping a food diary, which if you've never done before, you really need to do to understand what your intake is. So if you're not doing that from the start, how the hell so if you don't even keeping the journal to have that 20 to 30%, 25 to 30% error rate, you don't even have that. You don't know what your error rate is because it's completely ad hoc. You just eat. So when you're hungry, you eat. And if you're fat or you're not happy with your shape, then that method or that system of fat loss or dietary manipulation is not producing you the results that you want. So how do you think adding in like a CLA or a fat burner, or how do you think adding like a bell and a whistle into your habits, your everyday habits, how do you think that's going to have any change? It blows my mind, these sort of things, that people think that New Year's resolution, so I'm going to do cardio twice a week, and I'm going to take CLA, and I'm suddenly going to change my body shape. Your diet or your body composition is 90, for sedentary people, it is 100% down to your diet. For people who exercise quite rigorously, it's probably 80% down to your diet. How do you think that not addressing that core issue, not changing your habits, not trying to change your habits, or at the very least not even keeping a food diary for a week so you understand what you're eating, how can you think that's going to make any change? It's completely baffling. you need to understand what you put in your mouth. You need to understand calorie balance. You need to understand what is in food. You need to understand what you eat personally. And then you need to start understanding how to manipulate that to get any kind of output. There's no point of spice your way to skinny, or changing your calorie, like changing your macronutrient ratios, but still eating the same amount of calories, still doing the same amount of exercise. Nothing's going to change. You're not going to make the change that you want to make. You're just going to be the same. So another thing that this girl was saying, it's probably not a bad thing. She was saying when she was doing her one-to-one coaching, she would sign someone up for 6 months, but she would make them pay $5,000 up front. And then she herself said that's how she got buy-in, how she got people to follow what she was saying. If you pay $5,000 to someone for 6 months, you're going to pay attention to what they say, because it's presumably quite a large amount of money for you. There's pain there, so you're invested in it. You're going to listen. You're going to carry out what they're saying. They're skin in the game. So there's a behavioural tip there for you. If you find that you struggle keeping up with lifestyle changes or with habit changes, put some skin in the game. There's websites you can use for this, where you can maybe say, right, I'm going to deposit £600 into this, and if I manage to lose 10 kilos in the next 3 months, I'll get that money back. And for every kilo I don't lose, I'll lose £50 of that money. Something like that, some kind of financial motivation, that could be useful for you. There are things we can use to change what we do behaviorally. We could start, you could do it with a partner, you could do it with a friend, you could do it in a group. You can join a group like Weight Watchers for that accountability. You can hire a personal trainer. Put some skin in the game. Don't just think, I'm going to go on a diet. Throw some money at it, or have some kind of social accountability towards it, or join something you enjoy. Do powerlifting, or do weightlifting, or play sport like rugby, where your body weight, your body shape can actually inhibit you enjoying it. So there's some motivation for you to actually improve your habits and to improve yourself from a dietary standpoint. Another thing she was saying, and this was where the spice stuff came from, she was writing, this girl from the podcast, the Side Hustle podcast, she was writing about how she would send guest posts out for tender, and she sent out of 100 she sent out 95 were rejected, 5 were taken up, and one had a massive share, was reposted 12,000 times. It gave her she was featured on Fox News. She got a massive return from that one article, and it so happened to be called 5 Spices That Will Help You Burn Torch Fat, or words to those effect. And from that, she discovered there's a niche here, people are really receptive to this, and then she produced this Spice Your Way to Thin, or Spice Your Way to Fitness, or whatever her blog's called. And there we have it. She'd been talking about weight loss for a while. She'd been studying the people that she'd been coaching. She learned their language. She learned their common pain points, and she put that into her blog post. She put that into her communications that jives with people. But then from posting various different articles, she found a niche, and then boom, there we go. We have a niche now. We're making money. It's the same thing with low carb. These are gimmicks. They're ideas that catch people's imagination, and because they catch people's imagination and attention, it causes people to run with them. That's why all these diets, like the Zone diet, low carb, high fat, the Atkins diet, the Mediterranean diet, paleo, whatever the diet is, or whatever the thought behind the diet is, some kind of story that resonates with people. They think there's actually something to this. This makes sense to me in my head. There's a narrative behind this. I can get behind this. This makes sense. When in fact it's all bollocks. It's all just calorie control in different guises. Okay, I think I've been rambling enough. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Any questions, comments you'd like to leave me, please shoot me an email, speedpowerperformance@gmail.com. Leave a comment in the comment section on YouTube. Please like and subscribe to the channel, help grow it out. Thank you very much for listening. I've been Mark, and I'll catch you in the next episode of the Online Strength Coach podcast. Goodbye.